At the cocktail party where elites from various business circles had gathered, many people came up to exchange pleasantries with me. I held my wine glass and responded with low-key politeness. My fiancé, Ryan, who was supposed to be by my side, was already 10 minutes late. Finally, in the 11th minute, I caught sight of him. The man walking toward me looked refined and restrained, with a cold and distant expression on his face. "Why are you late?" I asked, raising my wine glass. Not a single sip had been taken from it. Suddenly, a voice rang out from behind Ryan. "Wow, Mr. Ryan, this lady and I are wearing the same dress." It was only then that I noticed a striking figure following behind him, a girl whose bright energy didn't match the formality of the occasion. She looked like a doe-eyed newcomer to society, innocent and fresh. But what truly caught my eye was the dazzling white mermaid-style gown trailing behind her. The design, tailoring, and even the quality were nearly identical to my own black gown, clearly from the same master designer. "Vivian, this is..." Ryan started to speak, but I had already crossed my arms and was silently sizing up the girl in front of me. An aura of superiority exuded from me, unspoken but palpable, and soon others around us started to notice and glance our way. "This is my secretary, Emily," Ryan finally introduced. "Nice to meet you, ma'am," Emily said sweetly, her eyes blinking as she looked around. "Mr. Ryan brought me here to broaden my horizons." "A secretary from such a well-off family," I remarked coolly. "Wearing a $30 million gown?" Emily blinked again, then looked down at her dress. Ryan, too, finally realized that Emily's gown was almost identical to mine, only the color was different. Murmurs started to spread around the room. Ryan, unruffled, took off his jacket and handed it to Emily. In a low voice, he told her, "Put this on. I'll have the driver take you home first." Emily's eyes immediately turned red. She looked even more like a frightened rabbit now, clutching Ryan's coat as if she'd suffered a huge injustice, then turned and ran off crying. Ryan acted as though nothing had happened and continued to accompany me, effortlessly socializing with the other guests at the party. It was as if what had just happened was nothing more than an unexpected mishap. The powerful guests around us praised Ryan for his youth and capability, but I could see the agitation hidden beneath his composed expression. Half an hour later, Ryan disappeared without saying a word. In the second half of the party, several people asked me where he had gone. I smiled and replied that he had to leave early due to work. After the party ended, I called Ryan. The phone rang endlessly before finally being picked up at the very last second. "Where did you go?" I asked calmly. "Ah, is this Miss Vivian?" A soft, saccharine female voice answered. "Mr. Ryan is a bit busy right now. I'll have him call you back in a bit." Her voice was sugary sweet but instantly made my blood boil. Unfortunately for her, I'm not the kind of woman who lets others provoke me without consequence. "Put Ryan on the phone." "Now," I said coldly, dropping all pretense of politeness. Perhaps startled by my sudden change in tone, the girl hesitated and mumbled something incomprehensible before I finally heard Ryan's voice in the background. "Yeah, give it to me." Then came his voice through the receiver. "Hello?" he said. I narrowed my eyes but didn't say anything immediately. When no voice came from the other end, he asked again, "Vivian? You left the party without saying a word. Give me an explanation," I demanded. "I'm sorry, Vivian," he replied. "There was an issue with a project at the company. It had to be resolved tonight. Everyone's working overtime. As the boss, I couldn't not be there." His answer was flawless, but I had no intention of swallowing my anger or dragging my irritation into tomorrow. "Your secretary wore the same dress as me. You bought it for her, didn't you? Explain what that means." He sighed helplessly, his voice carrying a hint of warmth and appeasement. "Vivian, the dress was borrowed from my sister. Emily already returned it. I didn't expect the two of you to wear the same design. That was my mistake. I'll buy you a one-of-a-kind gown tomorrow, all right?" His voice was cool and pleasant, like a clear spring washing away my brief anger. "It better be," I said, my voice carrying a rare note of willfulness. "Don't let this happen again." On the other end, I heard his helpless but indulgent chuckle before the call ended. Expressionless, I returned to organizing my work and upcoming schedule. The next day, Ryan indeed sent over several gowns from niche designers that suited me perfectly. Each one was unique in both design and color. "Vivian, were you jealous yesterday?" he asked as he hugged me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. Ryan, I chose you back then because you knew where the boundaries were. I hope you don't let me down, I said quietly. He tightened his arms around me. The corners of my mouth ached from the forced smile. Ryan didn't come from a privileged background, but he had demonstrated astonishing talent from a young age. That hadn't stopped countless women, Miss Populars of every sort, from falling for him. Still, he always kept his distance, like an ascetic monk who knew his limits and kept himself clean. That was exactly why I chose him. Well, that, and the fact that his face was the most beautiful I'd ever seen. You silly thing, he said, leaning in to kiss me. Getting jealous over a secretary? That's rare. Just as his lips approached mine, I turned away and met his eyes. Eyes don't lie. His were clear and bright, but when he saw the doubt in mine, his expression turned serious. I promise I won't cross the line with anyone, he said. I stared at him for a long moment, then slowly smiled. Seeing my smile, Ryan finally relaxed. Then came a tidal wave of kisses. I let myself get swept away in them. The next time I saw Emily was in Ryan's office. He was flying abroad tomorrow for a business meeting and would miss his grandfather's birthday, so I had come by early to drop off a gift for him to pass along. As soon as I entered, I saw the girl had propped her phone up on Ryan's desk and was practicing Baduan Jin, traditional Chinese stretching exercises, right there like no one else was around. I nearly burst out laughing at the sight, and in the end, I did. Hearing my laugh, both of them turned to the door at the same time. Ryan saw me and, unfazed, reached out his hand. What brings you here? I didn't take his hand. With my arms crossed, I stood there looking down at the two of them. Emily's face radiated a kind of innocent foolishness. She smiled and ran over to me. You must be Miss Vivian. Come, have a seat, she said as she tugged on my arm and tried to pull me toward the couch. She looked delicate, but she had surprising strength. Her thin, manicured nails dug into my skin, making me hiss softly from the pain. Immediately, my secretary and bodyguard, James, stepped forward and pushed Emily aside in one swift, clean motion. Her wrist twisted at a shocking angle, 180 degrees. A piercing scream echoed through the office. I rubbed my ear and muttered, James definitely deserves a raise. The girl fell to the floor from the pain, clutching her wrist and staring at me in terror. Emily. Is it? I said coldly. As a secretary, you don't even know who you're talking to and just casually call someone Miss? So what, every business partner who deals with Mr. Ryan gets to call each other brother and sister now? When did Mr. Ryan get so careless with his hiring? Just letting any kind of trash in? Ryan didn't even look at Emily. Instead, he walked straight to James and grabbed his arm. James, it's not appropriate to be rough with a young woman. James gave Ryan a small salute. Protecting Miss Vivian is part of my duty. After all, not just anyone gets to put their hands on her without consequence. In my heart, I was applauding James wildly. Ryan's face was icy as he stared at James for a long moment, then turned and picked up the office phone. Will, he said calmly, come in. When his assistant entered, Ryan instructed him seriously to take Emily to the hospital and follow the company's reimbursement procedures. Will stepped forward to help, but Emily was sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. She stood up weakly, swaying as though she might faint at any moment. She refused Will's help and spoke in a trembling, pitiful voice. I'm sorry, Mr. Ryan. I didn't mean to cause trouble. Miss Vivian, I only called you Miss because I thought you and Mr. Ryan were close. I'm sorry, it was presumptuous of me. Please don't blame Mr. Ryan. I'm incredibly grateful that he gave me this opportunity to be his secretary. I'll work hard to prove myself. Please. Please don't call me trash. Then, Emily bowed deeply to me. Her whole demeanor was the very picture of wronged innocence. Maybe it worked on Ryan, but the other men present, James and Will, both remained completely expressionless. Will even rolled his eyes. Ryan's expression held something unreadable. I could tell, those eyes were no longer as clear as before. You can go, Ryan said, his voice as calm as ever. Wait, I interrupted. You'd better remember, I'm Vivian Carter, not your Miss Vivian. Next time, call me Mrs. Carter. I smiled at Emily, my tone playful, but I was savoring the tension in Ryan's restrained expression like a prankster who got away with it. How amusing. After Emily left, Ryan gave me a look of mild reproach. Vivian, you didn't have to go that hard on a young girl. There was something different in Ryan's tone, something I hadn't heard before. "This is the gift for Grandpa," I said. "Make sure it gets to him." James placed the box on Ryan's desk. I clapped my hands and rose from the couch, ready to leave. There was no reason to stay anymore. The mood had shifted. Ryan was clearly angered by my attitude. He stepped forward and grabbed my wrist. "Vivian, don't be mad at me, okay? Aren't you the one who's upset?" I said coolly. "I was just helping you discipline your subordinate. There's really nothing going on between me and her. Why don't you believe me?" Ryan sounded anxious now. "Of course I believe you," I replied softly. I helped smooth out the creases in his suit jacket and looked up at him with a gentle smile. "Just don't forget to replace your secretary. If not, we'll end up being a joke." I laughed quietly, then turned and left with James. As soon as the plane landed, I got a message from Ryan. As usual, he wished me a safe trip, asked if I had arrived, reminded me to eat on time, and not to overwork myself. I squinted at my phone, amused. How interesting. Work abroad was so intense that I barely had time to think about anything else. When I did occasionally think of Ryan, I inevitably thought of his lovely secretary Emily as well. My sixth sense has always been terrifyingly accurate. Otherwise, my father wouldn't have handed me the entire family business. With intelligence and ability perfectly aligned, I knew the moment I saw Emily that her intentions toward Ryan were anything but innocent. James, who had his own network of little spies, came to me with an update. Ryan had transferred Emily out of the secretary department. News of what happened that day had already spread. The entire company now knew about Emily, provoking the future Mrs. Carter and getting her wrist broken by my bodyguard. In this company, gossip spreads faster than fire. After Emily recovered from her injury and returned to work, she was reassigned to the information department, with a desk right next to the restroom. Her face was pale, her arms still in a cast and hanging from a sling. The looks people gave her were filled with disdain. Ryan continued to call and message me every day, just like before. When I had time, I'd respond with a few lines. When I didn't, I ignored him. He never seemed upset. In our conversations, Emily's name never came up, not even once. It was as if she'd completely vanished. I had to admit, I admired Ryan's ability to pretend nothing had happened. It really did save us a lot of unnecessary trouble. James continued to give me regular updates. He confirmed that Ryan hadn't had any contact with Emily since. I neither confirmed nor denied my opinion. Honestly, it was starting to feel like the fun had run out. Then, finally, the day before I was due to return to the country, James showed me a screenshot on his phone. It was from a social media story, an account with a bunny avatar. "The area next to the restroom smells so bad. CEO, I beg you, have mercy." There was a picture of Emily posing with fake bunny ears, pretending to cry. And underneath that post, Ryan's avatar had liked it. My eyes lit up instantly. James gave me a helpless look and offered an apologetic smile, acknowledging that he may have misjudged the situation. That night, Ryan called. I actually picked up, and we talked for a long time. Like old friends who hadn't spoken in years, we shared stories and laughed about the past. The Ryan family had 4 sons. Ryan was the least favored, an illegitimate child, but also the most handsome. When I turned 18, my father announced he would choose a fiancé for me. By then, I was already being groomed as the heir to the family legacy. So, with a casual gesture, I pointed to the best-looking one. That's how the 4th son of a minor family ended up being chosen by me, Vivian Carter, heiress of the most powerful household, and from there, he rose through the ranks with ease. The Ryan family gained tremendous benefits through our connection and, thanks to that, managed to edge their way into high society. Ryan and I got along well. I liked his cool aloofness and his sense of boundaries. He never gave me reason to worry. But if he ever lost that quality, he would lose much of his value in my eyes. Ryan always knew exactly what he wanted. Around me, he was neither submissive nor arrogant. For a time, I truly believed I had fallen for him. Lately, with all our frequent communication, it felt like we were returning to how things used to be. I didn't resist physical intimacy with him. I've always believed in indulging in whatever brings me pleasure, and Ryan was clean, emotionally and physically. If he ever cheated, I knew he'd do it emotionally first, and only then physically. Honestly, I was looking forward to it. When I got off the plane, Ryan stood at the exit holding a bouquet of roses, quietly waiting for me. Every now and then, a girl passing by would blush as she stole glances at him. When Ryan saw me, he smiled and hurried over, wrapping me in his arms. I returned the gesture at the perfect moment, hugging his waist and burying my face in his chest. People around us looked on with envy as I, wearing a mask and sunglasses, was ushered away by our entourage. That night, the intimacy was deeply satisfying. I wrapped my arms around Ryan's neck and kissed him as his lips curled into a faint smile. "Vivian, do you love me?" he asked. "Of course I love you." I answered without hesitation. Then came another night of fierce, entangled passion. The next day, my waist felt like it was about to give out. I planned to rest for a bit, but Ryan subtly asked me for 2 projects. I handed them over to him in full. He was becoming more and more convinced that I truly loved him, that I couldn't live without him. That's exactly when people start overstepping. I even began sending him lunches, carefully selected takeout, packed into elegant containers and delivered to his office. Although Ryan had liked one of Emily's recent social media posts, she was still not transferred back to the secretary department. And as our relationship grew more intimate lately, Ryan had gradually forgotten she even existed. That was until the day I stopped by to drop off lunch. With some time to spare, I wandered around the Ryan Corporation offices and spotted Emily in a corner near the restroom. The fallout from the gossip had left her completely isolated. No matter how motivational her posts were online, in reality, she was clearly suffering. Emily was handing out milk tea from the chain green era with both hands. Her stockings were torn, revealing pale legs streaked with faint lines of blood. Limping from one step to the next, she continued to distribute drinks. Yet coworkers still complained she got their orders wrong. With a numb expression, Emily apologized and rushed off to buy new ones. As she passed by me, I caught a flicker of deep resentment in her eyes. Before I had time to react, she bumped her elbow hard into my arm. The pain hit me instantly. Before I could even register it, Emily tripped over her own feet and went flying forward. She hit the floor like a shattered porcelain doll. Everyone turned to look. I stood there, expressionless, clutching my stinging arm. Something, maybe a metal embellishment on her clothes, had scratched me and left a shallow wound. From the distance, James came rushing over, Ryan right behind him. Emily, now sprawled on the ground, was flustered and frantic as she tried to cover the ripped fabric of her skirt. Her stockings had multiple tears, some with dried blood, others freshly bleeding. Ryan's eyes were cold and unreadable. Emily looked helpless and fragile, like a weeping rabbit trying to appear strong. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Carter. I didn't mean to. You didn't bump into me, I bumped into you." She trailed off, choking on her words as tears streamed down her face. Her pitiful state was truly a sight to behold. Ryan shot me a cold glance. "I've already reassigned her from the secretary department. Why won't you let her go?" His voice wasn't loud, but it was loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. I was stunned for a second, then replied, my voice full of hurt. "I didn't do anything," I said, shaking my head, biting my lip as I looked at him. "Ryan, I've never been close to anyone else. If you don't believe me, that's fine, but you can't take your suspicion out on someone weaker. You know what kind of life I had to live before. Just because I had no power or influence, I was humiliated and bullied. I thought you were different. But you've disappointed me deeply." Without another word, Ryan took off his suit jacket, gently covered Emily's legs, and picked her up in his arms before turning and walking away. As I watched them leave, the expression of pain and helplessness on my face instantly disappeared, replaced by icy indifference. Those nearby who had witnessed my emotional shift froze in place, stunned, and quickly returned to their desks in silence. James helped me away. We headed straight to the Carter family's private hospital, where my arm was disinfected and bandaged. A long, red scratch oozed blood. It turned out Ryan really was the kind of man who overstepped when you showed him the slightest bit of warmth. The moment I showed I cared, he felt invincible. Looks like it's time for him to go. I shook my head with a mocking smile. Ryan began giving me the silent treatment. James reported that he had transferred Emily back to the secretary department, right to the desk outside his office. The employees who had bullied her, all fired by Ryan. With Ryan doing all that, no one could honestly believe there was nothing between them. Emily, like a harmless little bunny, resumed practicing badminton in Ryan's office, sometimes even dragging him along to do it with her. Will, Ryan's assistant, reported every detail to James, who then passed everything to me. Emily's social media started updating more frequently. A gift from the CEO, a brand new D+ smart bracelet, $180K. A handbag from C brand, $800K. Eating well and living large with the CEO. The accompanying photo showed Emily posing for a selfie at a 5-star restaurant. In the background, Ryan was focused on slicing his steak. In the next shot, that meticulously cut steak, each piece looking like it had been arranged by someone with OCD, was placed carefully in front of her. Post after post, each one practically a public confession, was being liked by Ryan. "My legs hurt again," she wrote. "The world's best CEO, Mr. Hot Ryan, carried me on his back, leg wrapped in gauze." When I saw that photo, I froze. It brought me back to when I was 19. I had injured my leg too, and Ryan had carried me. His shoulders were broad, solid, and made me feel so safe. His voice had still been a bit boyish then. "Vivian, from now on you're the only one I'll carry," he'd said. Back then I was proud and untouchable. I pouted. "I don't want you to carry me. You're too tall. I'm scared up there." He bent his back slightly. "Not so tall now, right? Is this okay?" "Fine," I said reluctantly, "but promise me, only carry me, no one else, otherwise your back will be dirty." "Of course, I'll only ever carry you in this life," he'd answered. And yet, it still got to me. I didn't want to keep playing their little game. Ryan didn't reach out to me like he usually would. No calls, no texts. This time he held out for 10 whole days. 10 days was more than enough for me to get a lot done. Ryan was overconfident. 6 years of being together made him think we were inseparable. He believed he and I were a single entity, that the Ryan family only had their current status because of their own merit. But both Ryan and even his father, Howard, seemed to have forgotten that everything they had was because of my family name, the Carters. I was sorting documents when my father called. His words were brief and to the point. "Get to the Minglong Business Gala, now." I laughed to myself. Looked like Emily hadn't let me down. No one knew my father would be attending the Minglong Gala tonight. This titan of industry rarely appeared at public events. But tonight, security was tight, at least 10 times the usual detail. People around the venue were beginning to sense that someone extraordinary was coming. Still, no one guessed it would be William Carter himself. If they had, Ryan wouldn't have dared bring along someone as unqualified as Emily. When Emily arrived at the event dressed in a designer gown worth tens of millions and clinging to Ryan's arm, everyone was stunned at the audacity of the Ryan family. Even Howard whispered urgently to Ryan. After calming his father down, Emily continued acting like a clueless schoolgirl, smiling sweetly and saying, "Mr. Howard, you look so young, you could pass for Ryan's brother, not his dad." Howard, clearly flattered, stopped fretting and praised her for being charming and articulate. And then, it happened. The entire venue shifted as the chairman of Minglong himself stepped forward to welcome someone with great respect. One by one, business moguls and tycoons from every industry followed suit, crowding around a single man walking into the banquet hall. A few heads of powerful families tried to chat with him. The room buzzed with energy once more. My father had always carried a terrifyingly strong presence, but when he turned on the charm, he could seem like a kind old gentleman. Ryan was still frozen in shock from seeing my father in person when their eyes met. My father's gaze locked on him instantly. Without hesitation, he strode directly toward Ryan. Startled, Ryan quickly stood straight and greeted him respectfully. "Uncle William?" My father had initially been prepared to exchange a few polite words with his future son-in-law, but the moment he spotted Emily by Ryan's side, his expression darkened. Emily, never having been in circles like this, had no idea who my father was. So when he asked, "And who is this?" she eagerly stepped forward. "Hello. I'm Mr. Ryan's date tonight, Emily." Her tone was cheerful and confident, utterly free of fear. She thought her boldness and casual charm would win her praise from the powerful men in the room. Instead, my father's face turned cold as stone. "Ryan," he said, "why don't you tell me? Why is your date not Vivian?" Ryan trembled from head to toe. Even after all this time at my side, he still couldn't hide his fear in front of my father. Uncle, she's my secretary. Vivian couldn't make it tonight due to work, Ryan said, each word cutting like a knife. But my father wasn't buying it. That's when Howard stepped in. Ah, Mr. Carter, what a surprise seeing you here. It's truly an honor. Ryan told me Vivian's been very busy at work lately, so he just brought his secretary along. My father chuckled, coldly. Did I ask you to speak? The weight of his presence spread like a storm cloud. Even Minglong's board members didn't dare say a word. Howard looked like his pride had just been stomped on. Over the years, he'd relied on the Carter family's influence to grow bold, but now that boldness was crumbling fast. We're all family here, he said, trying to smooth things over. William, that's no way to put it. My father gave a cold chuckle. My daughter doesn't tolerate sand in her eyes, he said flatly. You think a few throwaway lines are enough to make me forget? With that, he called me directly. By the time I arrived at the gala, Emily was already in a fit of tears, shouting, "Why do you look down on people like this? Just because you're rich doesn't mean you don't have to treat others with respect. No wonder Mr. Ryan doesn't like your daughter. She's nothing but a man-eating tigress." Howard slapped her across the face. "Shut your mouth, you wretched girl. Ryan, is this the kind of secretary you've hired? She doesn't even know the most basic rules of etiquette. What a disgrace." Howard was furious now, shaking with rage. Ryan's face had turned pale. He roughly shoved Emily behind him, preventing her from saying another word. But Emily, in her mind, saw herself as a warrior for love, fighting nobly for her prince against the tyranny of power and wealth. I nearly burst out laughing at the ridiculous sight. As I stepped into the ballroom, the crowd instinctively parted to make way. Some people bowed slightly and greeted me with, "Miss Carter." I nodded to them one by one. The moment I walked in, I saw my father with a look of utter disdain. "Dad." I ran to him and wrapped my arms around his arm, swinging it playfully. He shot me a side glance. "Look at this mess," he said. I turned cold eyes on Ryan. He looked back at me, pleading silently with my father. But I cut him off before he could even speak. "Ryan and I are over." The words hit like a thunderclap. Ryan stared at me, stunned, as if he couldn't believe what he had just heard. Howard let out a wail. "Vivian, is this some kind of misunderstanding between you and Ryan? Did he upset you? I'll scold him for you. But don't talk about breaking up. You're engaged. After all these years together, it hasn't been easy." I sat down beside my father, leaning lazily into the couch. No one else dared take a seat. They all remained standing respectfully around us. Ryan looked at me, panicked. "Vivian, I know we've had misunderstandings. We've argued. But don't just throw out the word breakup so casually, okay? I know I've been wrong lately. I know I've hurt you." "You don't know," I interrupted, voice calm. "I've made up my mind long ago. We're done. Ryan, aren't you happy now?" "How could I be happy, Vivian?" he asked, voice trembling. "We've been together for so many years. You can't just throw it away like that." "It's not throwing it away," I said. "I used to be very satisfied with you. But now I'm not. So I don't want you anymore." "You think people are objects?" Emily suddenly shouted, completely unable to restrain herself. "You think you can just say you don't want him and that's that? Shut the hell up." Ryan roared, turning on her. In that moment, his greatest regret was bringing Emily to this event in the first place. "Oh, Ryan," I sneered. "So this is the secretary you so carefully handpicked? The one you swore you'd never give up on?" Around us, onlookers whispered, gossip rippling like waves through the room. "That's his secretary?" one murmured. "I thought she was some rich heiress." She had so much attitude I almost believed her. Who hires a secretary that stupid? Exactly. And did you hear her just now? She had the nerve to talk back to the head of the Carter family. What the hell gave her that kind of confidence? I've always been suspicious of the Ryan family, leeching off the Carters and still acting so entitled. Look at Ryan. Anyone who didn't know would think he was heir to some royal family. I listened to the commentary with a smile tugging at my lips. "Mr. Ryan," I said aloud, "I've told you before, if someone has no manners, no sense of professional ethics, no basic understanding of her role, then how is she qualified to be your chief secretary? Are you really that stupid? Or do you just have a thing for her?" I think we both know the answer. You keep claiming there's nothing going on between the two of you, so why hire someone like her? Has the whole professional world run out of candidates? Ryan could feel the weight of everything coming back to crush him, every poor decision, every blind spot. Why had he kept someone so unqualified, so inappropriate in such an important role? I looked straight at him, taking in his pain and confusion. "I'll tell you why, Ryan," I said. "Because you like her. She's nothing like me, she's full of admiration, her world revolves around you, and that makes you feel special. When you're with me, you don't feel admired like that." "Yeah, me, Vivian Carter. Besides my father, who else is even worthy of my admiration?" That old man looked at me proudly, and I almost burst out laughing. "Vivian, I'm sorry," Ryan said. "I swear, I've never had feelings for her. I can swear it on my life." He raised his hand as if to take an oath. "Forget it, Ryan," I said coldly. "Don't you think you're being ridiculous? In the past, every time you attended a formal event, I was by your side. And now? You brought your secretary. In the 6 years we've known each other, have you ever brought a secretary to an event? Have you ever said, 'Let me show her the world'? Did you ever buy any other secretary a dress worth tens of millions?" Ryan's face turned ashen, as if his mind was collapsing in on itself. What kind of CEO lets his secretary do Tai Chi in his office? A young heir nearby couldn't hold it in anymore and laughed out loud. Then came a ripple of laughter throughout the room. Another one of Ryan's former associates couldn't help teasing. "Ryan, seriously? You let your secretary practice Tai Chi in your office? That's so stupid, it's almost impressive." At that point, Ryan wanted nothing more than to crawl into a hole and disappear. Emily had gone completely silent. After being shouted down by Ryan earlier, she finally realized how serious this situation was and didn't dare speak another word. "And for the record," I added, "your office is covered in security cameras. And yet you still suspected that I tripped her? Well, let me make this clear right now. She rammed into me, and then she flung herself forward. I got injured. I was the one hurt." I rolled up my sleeve and showed the scabbed-over red wound on my arm. My father, who'd always treated me like the center of his world, saw the injury and immediately stormed over and slapped Ryan across the face. Ryan fell back, collapsing to the floor. His eyes, red with rage and guilt, stared at the mark on my arm. He had once vowed never to let me suffer a single scratch. And now, he'd done this. He knew full well that Vivian Carter, the future heir of the Carter family, would never lie about something so petty. So why hadn't he believed me? "You keep insisting nothing's going on between you and your secretary," I said coldly. "But what kind of good guy buys his secretary gifts worth tens of thousands? What kind of good guy dines with her alone at a private restaurant? What kind of CEO cuts up her steak for her? What kind of good guy carries her on his back?" That last line I nearly spat through clenched teeth. Ryan looked at me, and I knew he was thinking of that old promise, the one where he said he'd only ever carry me. "Your little secretary has been flaunting your relationship on social media, like it's her full-time job. You tell me, why should I keep putting up with this?" Ryan stared at me, devastated. The corner of his mouth was cracked from the slap my father had landed. "Vivian, I didn't cheat," he whispered. Saying that seemed to take everything out of him. But I didn't want to hear it anymore. "I used to believe you had a sense of boundaries," I said. "Emily shattered that. Over the years, you've had dozens of secretaries. There were 6 of them in your department at one point. Did I ever say a word about any of them? I warned you, she didn't even know the most basic social etiquette. And yet you hired someone that foolish anyway. Her clumsy little act actually fooled you. Made you look like some naive fool who's never stepped foot in the real world. What happened to the cool, distant man I used to admire? The one who carried himself with restraint and grace? You bought her gifts, took her to fancy restaurants, carried her in your arms with tenderness, and you want to tell me you didn't cheat?" I laughed, sharp, cruel. "Does it only count as cheating once you sleep with her? Please, I'm not desperate for you, Ryan. You're not the only man I can choose." I said all of that as if I were discussing something trivial, but every word landed like a dagger. Ryan had truly believed that because he hadn't physically crossed the line, everything was still fine. But every example I listed, one by one, left him utterly defenseless. We're innocent," Emily suddenly blurted. "Mr. Carter and I, there's nothing between us." "Shut the hell up, you little tramp," Howard roared, now completely losing control. "You've ruined my son. He knew it was too late. There was no way to undo what had already happened. The moment the Carter family pulled their support, the Ryan family would crumble. And all of it, because of a dumb, delusional secretary. Unable to hold back his fury, he slapped Emily across the face. Emily stood there stunned, head spinning from the impact. Her dignity was already gone, so she decided to fight back. If worst came to worst, she'd just call the cops. She launched herself at Howard, ready to strike back, grabbing wildly at the tufts of hair on his head. Ryan watched in horror as the girl he once thought he needed started brawling with his father in front of the entire elite social circle. In that moment, he realized he must have been under some kind of spell, because this was the person he thought deserved protecting. Yes, he had chosen Emily. That was his mistake. Unforgivable. Unpardonable. Everything that had blown up tonight was because of him. And yet, back then, he thought I was the one at fault, that I was the one using power to suppress using my identity to bully the weak. But Emily? Emily, who could even throw hands at his own father? She wasn't weak. She was a manipulative girl who knew how to act fragile. And for someone like that, he had lost everything. Vivian, I was wrong. Can you forgive me? Ryan asked, his voice weak and trembling. His eyes were so red they looked like they could bleed. I looked at him. This man who once swore I'd be the only person ever to ride on his back. That boy who used to look at me with such bright, clear eyes. I smiled at him and shook my head. The light in Ryan's eyes faded completely. He understood. There would never be an us again. I left with my father, not bothering to look back at the chaos behind us. The Ryan family had already made more than enough off of us. After tonight, there would be no more favors. No more mercy. Vivian, your taste in men is seriously flawed, my father said coldly as we sat in the car. I threw my arms around his and rocked it playfully. Come on, Dad, I only ever choose someone if I like them, and if I stop liking them, I let them go. It's really that simple. Yes, it is, he replied, but I was just worried my precious daughter would be heartbroken. You've told me since I was little to be ruthless and cold-blooded. I don't have a heart. I only love you and Mom. And your mom and I will always love you. Anyone dares hurt my daughter, I'll kill them. Oh my God, Dad, I groaned, pressing my hand to my forehead. Could you please be a decent person for once? He just snorted in exasperation. James later told me Ryan had been thrown out by his father. Howard had no patience for a useless son. But Howard himself was finished too. With the Carter family pulling out, every project was shut down overnight. Clients began investigating all the shoddy deals they'd tried to pass off before. Ryan had real talent, but it was no match for Howard's greed. The moment Howard tried to cut corners to maximize profits, the whole company was doomed. No one could believe that a lowly secretary had brought down an empire. Emily had to return every gift she'd received. Then she was immediately fired. Her so-called heroic saga spread through the upper circles like wildfire. People nicknamed her Miss Emily the Eternal, the girl who dared to challenge William Carter himself. No company dared to hire her. Eventually, she ended up working at a movie theater, selling tickets. She tried to seduce the manager and got her leg broken by his wife. She even reached out to Ryan again. He cursed her out coldly and drove her away. Ryan had enough problems of his own. He came to see me more than once, but every time he was tossed out by my bodyguards. This time, my father was personally selecting my next fiancé. One morning, I was lounging in a deck chair in the sprawling garden, soaking in the sun, when I heard a voice, cool, calm, and clear. Hello, I'm Ethan Summers. Mr. Carter sent me to find you. I slowly opened my eyes. Bathed in sunlight, a young man stood before me, framed by the glow like some immortal being stepping out of legend. He looked down at me with pure, innocent eyes. Dear God, I thought. Did Dad seriously just match me with someone who isn't even 18?